Welcome back to the final Media7, where I'm discussing the state of the media with Tim Pankhurst and Paul Brislin. Now, as Sam shows in the source, the media landscape right now is a bumpy one.
The GFC and the internet boom came crashing down upon the media world. Advertising revenues still have not recovered, but web ad revenue is up 140% in 5 years. Nearly 90% of Kiwis use the internet. That can't grow much more, but the number of us who used the web via a mobile device is skyrocketing, up 73% just last year. Also rising is the amount of time we spend watching television, now 3 hours and 22 minutes every day. That's more than 2 years of advertisement watching in a lifetime. More than half of digital viewing goes on through Sky. Freeview, with its in-TV decoders, is catching up. But with just 3 months to go till the digital switchover begins, 18% of Kiwis are still not digital. Behemoth Sky has the Olympics, meaning you'll need a $72 subscription to see the games in full. Our lack of regulation means Sky's 49% market share dwarfs the power similar players have in their markets. Will Sky dominate ultra-fast broadband too?
Well, Paul Brislin, the Commerce Commission has in fact decided that maybe Sky's business practices are worth a look.
Yeah.
What are your hopes for that inquiry?
They're not great because they're looking at a very narrow aspect of Sky's business model. What they're doing is looking at the relationship Sky has with the ISPs and the contractual obligations that are placed on those ISPs. I'd much rather we open this whole thing up and we have a discussion about the media as a whole. You know, we've got a lot of decisions going on at the moment. We've had the copyright nonsense go on. We've got Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiating away IP rights. We've got a little bit of an investigation into Sky. The Commerce Commission's also looking at content on the ultra-fast broadband network. We've got a discussion about public television. TV and Z7's disappearing in a few days' time. You know, there's a whole conversation going on, but we're nibbling away at the edges and we really need to get in and have a look at the whole thing.
I have to say I don't fancy your chances of that happening. Now, Tim, as Paul noted, public broadcasting is disappearing. We had Stratos go last year and then this channel goes at the end of this week. Are you concerned about that?
Yes, I am. I think the fact that we don't have a ABC or an SBS equivalent as they have in Australia is a real blight on our broadcasting scene.
There's some speculation that Maori television could step into the breach.
And to some extent they have.
Which is what Craig Foss said in the House. Would you like to see that happen?
Yes. Yes, I would.
We've also been discussing the difficulty of funding journalism in print, of course. Are we nearing the day where we talk about the government supporting other forms of journalism, not just broadcast?
Look, I don't think we are. You know, and the print companies employ about 1,500 journalists in this country. The media companies are still very profitable in this country, even though they're under a lot of pressure. And, you know, we're seeing huge shifts in the way that the content is delivered, but, you know, they're by no means basket cases.
Paul, what about, say, the pro-publica model, where people get together and crowdsource quality journalism? Do you think we'll see more of that?
I would hope so, because the alternative seems to be, if advertising doesn't work, let's get sponsors in and we'll have sponsored content. And I'm sorry, but that's just advertorial under a pretty frock. You know, I don't like that at all, and I refuse to read it. All too often I see new magazines being produced that are simply sponsored by a variety of people, and I know immediately that the content is tainted. And so do all the other readers. Readers want independent, objective material, and that's really critical. I don't think you're going to get that through a sponsored model, so we have to look elsewhere, and I would hope the public funding model is the way to do it.
Well, I have to say, so that we're not too gloomy, I'd like to ask you both what your own media highlights for the year are. What's yours, Tim?
Look, undoubtedly the fantastic work that Phil Kitchen, the country's best investigative journalist, has done around ACC and the fact that they can't seem to keep their information private. So far we've seen a minister go the chief executive, the chairman of the board and 2 board members, and the story isn't finished yet.
Nowhere near finished, and I suspect we'll hear Phil Kitchen's name for a few years yet as well.
I hope so.
Yes. Paul, what's your highlight?
Well, on a slightly different note, I'd have to say it's clearly Ben Gracewood getting in to go swimming with .com, which is possibly the news story of the year and featured on both Herald and Fairfax publications.
And I have to say, our own Jose Barbosa made the German papers face down in a swimming pool.
You can't ask for better than that.
Yes. Are you hopeful for the media industry, Tim?
Yes, I am. I think, look, people forget that. You've got to put it in context. You know, in the 70s, there was massive change with the end of hot metal. Suddenly we had cold type, compositors' craft disappeared, direct editorial input, no more readers. And at the time, everyone said, oh, this is a terrible thing and this is the death of newspapers as we know them. We're seeing now profound change, and it's very challenging, and it's painful. But you know, we'll get a better model out of it.
Yeah, and as you note, those changes were actually the saving of newspapers. I think we can all agree on that. Right, well, thank you, Tim Pankhurst and Paul Brislin. We've made a lot of television these past 5 years, and some of it was even quite good. It fell to Jose Barbosa to compile the memories.
No, I don't want to see his face. Just rotoscope it out or something like that, just layering. Oh, hello there, thanks for coming along. Now, there are quite a few of us who work on these pre-recorded bits you see on the show, and I've been asked to put together a greatest hits package, if you like. So, these are some of our favourites. I hope they're some of yours.
Media7's first reporter, Simon Pound, faced his time in the boil-up, filling in for Russell and receiving a dubious query from John Tamahiri.
Thank you for your time discussing...
You coming out of the closet?
See, that's the kind of talk that doesn't help, does it?
Only if you go first.
It's quite kind of adolescent.
In his time on the show, Simon covered diverse topics. Everything from competing newspapers on Waiheke...
You don't read the papers? You don't like the papers?
Oh, no, not at all. I don't read. I don't have any contact with media at all for 20 years now. I used to work in television there, so I know it's good on there.
2 homegrown wrestling shows.
Just get the trusty old basics razor blade and shove it in and go like that.
So you're making a comeback, Jimmy?
What's your day job?
I sell pet supplies in supermarkets. Hey. Oh, shit!
Take 2 reporter Sarah Daniel, who's also our researcher, turned her segments into visual treats, such as this look at the fortunes of Top Gear.
It's easy to see why you'd feel protected. It's like being clad in pig iron.
She also strayed into more risque territory. Here she is examining the world's worst literary sex scenes with novelist Emily Perkins.
Like a lepidopterist mounting a tough-skinned insect with a 2-blunt pin, he screwed himself into her.
And surely there's a BAFTA waiting in the wings for her sensitive portrayal as a journalism student ground to a pulp by working in PR. She fires off press releases about condom surveys and her clients' bowel movements until every last bit of her soul is scraped away. And the only way out is to do a Sylvia Plath. But if it's range you want, Daniel brought the goods for CSI Auckland.
I've just stumbled on a critical piece of evidence that's going to lead us to solve the crime.
What is it?
It's a cigarette butt. Bag it, tag it. We have the whole story here. This site is a level 2 biohazard. I want you to double glove.
I'm all over it.
As the show progressed, it became clear that if we wanted to talk about the media, increasingly that meant talking about numbers. Cue a golden-haired scamp called Sam Mulgrew in a feature we called The Source.
With 845 million users per month, that's 6 times the population of Russia. It's no wonder it needs 60,000 servers. It's knocking on Google's, even China's back door. 57% of Facebook traffic comes from women, the ad man's dream client. But like the book, the internet's still a spring chicken. It's 21 years old, and it's still growing like crazy. Today, 1/3 of the human race use the internet.
And that brings us to my rubbish. Not since Put a Bucket on Your Head has the New Zealand public seen anything so untethered by either professionalism...
I think I landed on my keys, actually.
...budget transparency... or highbrow wit.
God knows I always try to comport myself with dignity. Oh!
The only saving grace is that the people I got to talk to were actually mostly awesome, such as the New York-based online satire unit, the Gregory Brothers.
I brought you some things from the South Pacific, from New Zealand. Yeah, some refill.
Oh.
A little pad there.
Well, this is a pad of paper.
Yeah.
I also talked to a man who seemed to have had his brain replaced with a fish finger.
It's about consistent, decisive leadership, and it's about consistent and decisive leadership around some very tough decisions. It's about stability, decisions made with a lot of stability. It's about doing the right thing and doing things right. The more mistakes I've made in the past, but make no mistake, I don't tend to make the same mistake twice.
But if this game is about telling stories, then nothing fitted the bill like my time at the Foxton Audiovisual Museum.
Well, we had a lady called in here from Auckland, and her great-grandfather had a film at Tangi Moana, and she come in and she said, thought we may have had it. And so I said, oh yeah, so we had a look through and we found one, and we played it, and it was back in about the 1930s at Himatangi, at Tangi Moana. All the boats, and in those days the estuary was full of boats and people. It was a picnic. You don't see it now. The upshot of it was she didn't quite find what she wanted. Anyway, a couple of years later on, I found the film that she was looking for. I've actually found it, but now I've lost track of it.
Now, if you've enjoyed the stuff that we've done on the show over the past couple of years, there's a huge reason why you probably liked it. That's because of this woman here. This is our editor. This is Sasha Childers, and she's been the editor of the show for how long?
4 or 5 years?
And,
since the beginning.
Since the beginning. If we're lucky enough to get your applause at the end of this, please make sure you're clapping for Sasha.
And that is very nearly it from us. Thanks again to tonight's panellists, Tim Pankhurst and Paul Brislin, and to all our panellists over the years. We deeply appreciate the time they've given us. Thanks to you, the viewers, for joining us on the trip. And thanks to the key people whose names are never mentioned on the show, including production manager Lacey Graham, director Matt Barrett, DA PJ Chapman, floor manager Sarah Thomas, our people at Top Shelf Productions and TVNZ, and most of all, Media7's producer, Phil Wellington. Phil was described today as a cunning old dog, to which I can only say you can teach an old dog new tricks, and he'll teach you a thing or two too. I've been Russell Brown, and it's been a privilege. Goodbye.